As direct beneficiaries of Avatar Meherabad's advent, a profound degree of clear understanding is required of us when separating the beguilingly sentimental from the spiritually sound, when considering Avatar Meherabad's divinely ordained role in the tumultuous period of 1939 to 1945. Hindsight is a wonderful thing after any event, but how we give full regard to the astounding circumstances of this period and of Avatar Meherabad's role for the upliftment of humanity through the suffering and turmoil of a world at war can only be reconciled through a full understanding that it was for a massive upheaval in mankind's consciousness toward a new humanity of spiritual values based on direct experience. We may certainly concede that the Second World War was to cleanse the accrued sanskaras of the human race, but if we fully take to heart Avatar Meherabad's statement in 1939, the war is a nightmare necessary for universal awakening and essential for my divine manifestation, we then come much closer in realizing our great fortune in being direct recipients of His grace. As early as 1925, and again in 1928, Meherabad had ordained and foretold there would be another world war, and then in 1939 was most clear about his avataric role, stating, "It is all my game, my universal work." And then once again defined for us, the war is inevitable and essential as a prelude to the great spiritual upheaval to take place in the world. As we scan the broad perspective of beloved Baba's activities during these cataclysmic times, some astounding factors capture our attention and demonstrate clearly many of the ramifications of his universal work, and also how those closely aligned to him could become a medium for his work. For instance, during the blue bus journeys, Nonni Gailey became seriously ill with a heart condition, and after arriving in Bangalore in October of 1939, on the 13th of the month, Baba said Nonni had died, even though she was still alive. Baba soon after went to her room and she died peacefully with Baba present. Beloved Baba then revealed she had to die before the 21st of October, and the war would then escalate enormously. The blue bus journeys began from Meherabad in December 1938, and after arriving in Bangalore almost a year later, Baba inaugurated the building of a universal spiritual centre in the vicinity. This centre proved to be extraordinarily problematic in many ways, just as the movement of the war was problematic. Yet beloved Baba worked at a furious pace, disregarding the extreme agitation against him and his work emanating from Bangalore, which he said had been instigated by the Parsis and Iranis, and indicated, "They also do my work." To make matters worse, the Mandali were constantly complaining to Baba of the substandard work by the building contractors for the spiritual centre, and beloved Baba subsequently severed all contracts with them, but made it clear it was for his spiritual reasons he did so. And as was pointed out by one of the Mandali, Baba seemed to enjoy it all. As 1939 came to an end, Baba's health fluctuated enormously, seemingly with the changing conditions of the war. And on Christmas Day, beloved Baba suffered angina of the heart for 2 minutes and asked the Mandali to make a note of the day and time it happened. Should we suppose an enormous change in the war conditions came about due to this event? I believe we must consider the possibility in the light of Avatar Meherabad's destined role to control the forces of Maya and his subsequent remarks that he had taken personal charge of the war and his plan was all chalked out. At the beginning of 1940, Baba's general mood was volcanic toward the Mandali, giving them a severe dressing down for any disobedience or mismanagement, and in some cases striking them. Yet at the same time, Baba was extremely happy working with the musts he had brought to his ashram in Bangalore, dispensing spiritual sustenance to these advanced souls and daily bathing and cleaning the latrines of these apparent dregs of the social order. One must wonder how any man could galvanize so many disparate people, Eastern and Western, into a homogeneous working entity for such unlikely activities as building a universal spiritual center, running what Avatar Meherabad called must ashrams, and then taking the trouble to go touring with an odd mix of women in a small cramped bus, extensively overloaded with not only people but provisions. And all this taking place while a world war was raging, which Baba said he was totally accountable for. To give an account of the Blue Bus tours, which ended in November 1941, would not be profitable here, as it has been covered extensively. But what became apparent was that these meandering bus journeys were certainly not for mere pleasure, as exemplified by the following incident. Baba was considering taking the women to a saint's tomb on a hill, but complained it would be a headache due to the steep climb and the cost involved. 2 of the women approached Baba and suggested that he drop the idea and that he shouldn't go to so much expense and trouble for them. Baba severely reprimanded them, saying, "If you think I'm doing this for you, you're mistaken. My work comes first. You are secondary, and so is money." A great deal of Avatar Meherabad's work for humanity during these war years was done in seclusion. Baba would often close himself off entirely so that none could witness him, to the extent of having windows plastered over with paper as to have total privacy. Beloved Baba would warn his Mandali time and again he should not be disturbed under any circumstance. Several examples over the years have been recorded of the danger involved in disturbing Avatar Meherabad in seclusion. But I believe the following incident, recorded by William Donkin in his diary in 1940, will more than convince us of its gravity. He tells of the occasion when one of the Mandali inadvertently walked in on Baba, not knowing of his seclusion, and witnessed a terrible sight. Baba's face was contorted and his body trembling. He had never seen Baba looking so dreadful. Beloved Baba told him, after the intrusion had been explained, that he had been using his power and had to turn it in on himself so that when the Mandali entered, he would not be killed. As the year 1940 progressed and the war thickened, Baba cautioned everybody that 1940 was going to be the worst year the world had seen since the creation. He also warned his Mandali and lovers there would be many doubts and illnesses among them, and his own suffering would greatly increase. The bus journeys continued, and severe problems at every turn seemed to be the norm, with the beloved audibly groaning at night under the weight of his work. Should we then consider Avatar Meher Baba's general physical condition and the world situation as being not only symptomatic but reflective of the weight of his work in taking on universal suffering to bring about his promised era of a new humanity? I would say undoubtedly yes. Yet he said, I am free from my universal work. I hold the key to the universe and will use it. Surely it is only the Avatar who could make this statement convincingly. What had become clear to the Mandali in this Holocaustic period was the number of times Baba would not only infer but clearly state that he was the Avatar. Shouldn't we smile at Baba saying during wartime turmoil, all avatars are rascals, including myself, and there should be no misunderstanding about the Avatar. They are like fire. If you touch fire, you will be burned. If you seek to use it from a distance, it will certainly give you warmth and cook your food and be useful in every way. The insights we gather from the records of the times regarding Avatar Meher Baba's work is mind-numbing. If we but place ourselves vicariously with him during this historic period of reorientation for engrossing humanity, and reveals to us graphically how he uses his universal key and the immensity of his suffering because of it. There are millions of holes in my body because of the suffering of the world. Yet because of my infinite bliss and power, I can withstand it. The war is necessary. All this destruction will purge the world of dirt, clean it of filth, so that a new order can be established. The war, of course, continued to hold humanity in a vice-like grip into the 1940s without any resolution in sight. But our Divine Beloved consoled all those who cared to listen. I shall decide definitely the length of time this war will last and exactly when it will end. Can we doubt this when we know Avatar Meher Baba clearly told his Mandali in 1940 precisely events as they did indeed happen? Hitler would commit suicide, Mussolini would be killed, Germany and Italy would be crushed and lose. Previously, Baba had said that Hitler was a medium for his work. When questioned as to whether Hitler was a spiritual agent or not, Barber replied precisely, "Hitler is not an agent, but an actor, perfect in playing the role ordained. God's nazar is on him. Otherwise, how could God's game continue as planned?" And in a wonderful lighter vein of revelation, our beloved also said, Hitler was his star villain, Churchill the hero, and Mussolini the comedian of his divine drama. How delightful it must have been for our beloved Barber when in 1941, during his endlessly tiring must hunts, he had a few hours to spare while waiting for a train, so took his men to see a film in which his divine drama was brilliantly brought to life by Charlie Chaplin in his masterful tragicomic film, The Great Dictator, satirizing Hitler and Mussolini. Its wonderful humour enthralled our most discerning avatar Meherabad, who said about it in his delight, "It is the only film I would like to see 7 times. His Meherabad Mandali and even those he had previously ordered not to see films were told they could see it as many times as they wished." When giving an overriding account of these prominent years in humanity's history, we must take into full account Avatar Meherabad's total focus and grueling level of commitment in his search for musts, to assist him in his work for the regeneration of the social order. By January of 1941, Barber had contacted 65% of all musts in India and foretold he would contact 70% before he speaks. The must phenomena is explained so perfectly by beloved Barber when he tells us, "The mind of a must can be a more effective agent for spiritual work than the most able persons of the gross world. The must mind is often used directly by the Master as a medium for sending his spiritual help to different parts of the world. And even though the Master is helping humanity, he is also helping the must at the same time." In a similar vein, when visiting the numerous tombs and dargahs of masters and saints during these war years, Barber would reiterate that even though he was cleaning out the tangled mess of sanskaras attached to these places for humanity, that a living pilgrim on the third plane was a far more effective agent for his work than even the tomb of a 7th plane master. In giving such explanations, beloved Avatar Meherabad has broadened our understanding enormously as to the value of the advanced soul to humanity. How astounding that these war years became an enormous catalyst for our beloved to give us spiritual tuition and guidance through a publication known as the Meherabad Journal, which surfaced in 1938 and ran until 1942. The nucleus for all the beloved's discourses for posterity is found in this small publication, and he gives us through them a profound new understanding of the meaning of the spiritual life, in succinct and to the point explanations in a highly developed yet readily understood form for every man. In the November 1940 issue, Avatar Meherabad's seminal discourse, The New Humanity, was published. In it he assures us the coming civilization of the new humanity will not be ensouled by dry intellectual doctrines, but by a living spiritual experience. The Meherabad Journal also becomes the more important as it outlines in first-hand idiosyncratic form accounts of beloved Baba's journeys and activities by an amazing collection of people who accompanied him during these years. In their printed articles, Baba has given the authors full rein to convey in their own manner observations of a highly personal nature which have an unparalleled immediacy for us as we are able to follow Avatar Meher Baba day by day. While further attempting to understand events associated with this time, a more than noteworthy occurrence came about toward the end of 1941 when a Pasni Maharaj died. Baba had previously told his Mandali, "When Maharaj dies, I will come into my full power." So once again, we see a continuity of the universal ramification of Avatar Meher Baba's work. We may also observe that shortly after the event, on the 12th of December 1941, whilst at Meherabad, Baba went down to Lower Meherabad, secluded in a white sheet, with only the Mandali allowed to witness him, and lit the dooni, and then ordered that it should be lit on the 12th of each month from that day forward. And while talking about Meherabad, I would like to draw your attention to Rano Gailey's large painting known as the 10 Circles chart, executed at Baba's order and which can be seen in the Meherabad Museum. During the Blue Bus tours of 1938 to 1941, Baba ordered Rano to carry this unfinished painting with her wherever they went, and not to show it to anyone. Rano would attempt to work on it when Baba and Tide allowed, and it was not until 1943 that she was able to finish it with the beloved's approval. As we scan this extraordinary painting, which Baba gave no explanations for, some obviously distressful signs for humanity appear among the multitude of archetypal and prototypal images, such as battleships, submarines, armoured tanks and bombers. Yet it also becomes obvious that Avatar Meher Baba is overseeing all the phenomena displayed and is in total command as head of the spiritual hierarchy. As we move through the substance and strata of Avatar Meher Baba's work during this time span, it is readily seen that his altruistic hand had a firm grip on all factors of the war, and he was not releasing his hold for a moment, and is saying with a resounding voice, "After this current chaos in the world, there will be a complete change. A new order will arise." Never slackening his pace for a moment well into the 1940s, Baba's activities continued unabated with a degree of intensity noted by the Mandali, who felt the strain of constant movement, with endless must hunts, gatherings, meetings and darshan programs, with Baba giving numerous spiritual explanations and discourses the length and breadth of India, and beloved Baba explaining again in 1943, "For one and all, concerning the world's consternation about events in the war, all this noise about war is actually about my work. My work is only truly beginning, and I will now double the momentum. I hold the key to everything, and as I turn it, many things will happen. It is the master key. From 1939 until 1945, Avatar Meher Baba never left India, except for a visit to Ceylon. But several of his Western disciples returned to their countries by Baba's orders. One was Elizabeth Patterson, who was given a mission by Baba to seek out a site for a spiritual centre for him in the USA. Elizabeth's heartfelt objective for her beloved Baba was fully achieved when she informed him in 1944 that a property of 500 acres at Myrtle Beach had been deeded into her name, and her desire was to gift the property to Baba forever for his spiritual cause. Avatar Meher Baba's grace was imparted to the USA when beloved Baba informed Elizabeth, I am happy to find in all your letters about Myrtle Beach everything I personally and spiritually approve and sanction. All my lovers should cooperate to make Myrtle Beach a spiritual abode for one and all. Looking back to 1941, we can certainly say that a doomsday mentality had gripped the world when Japan entered the war, aligning itself with Germany. But the stage had been set by our beloved for a new alignment of values when the atomic bomb was dropped on Japan in 1945. Avatar Meher Baba said, I am very pleased about the atomic bomb, which will wipe everything out. Should we finish on this powerful note, or attempt to reconcile our beloved's activities throughout these angry years? Beloved Avatar Meher Baba was in great distress at the endless and insensitive world leaders' stupidity in not recognizing the spiritual value of harmony among people of all nations. When considering the multitude of times beloved Baba had mentioned to us that a new humanity would emerge from the debris of destruction, I will put my firm and unshakable faith in positing right now. We are that new humanity he foretold would happen.